Have you ever wished you could truly understand what someone was thinking? Not just guessing, not just watching their body language, but actually knowing the thoughts in their heart? Imagine walking into a room, sitting across from a person, and before they say a word, you already know their intentions. You can sense their fears, their hidden motives, even the secrets they've never spoken out loud. Sounds impossible, right? But what if I told you that there's a way that doesn't involve tricks, psychology books, or manipulation, but something deeper, something spiritual? Yes, I'm talking about reading people's minds through prayer. And this is the secret that almost nobody talks about. Stay with me, because by the end of this story, you'll understand not only that it's possible, but how it's possible, and why prayer is the key that unlocks it. I want to start with a story. There was a young man named Samuel. Samuel was quiet, always in the background, never the type to stand out in a crowd. But he had one unusual gift. Whenever his friends were troubled, he seemed to just know. They didn't even have to explain themselves. He would say something, and they'd ask, "Wait, how did you know I was thinking that?" One day, something happened that changed everything. Samuel was in his church praying alone at night. The lights were dim, the room was empty, and all you could hear was the echo of his footsteps as he paced the altar. He wasn't asking God for money, for success, or even for help with his exams. No. That night, he prayed a different kind of prayer. He said, "Lord, help me to see what you see. Help me to hear what you hear. Let me understand people's hearts, not just their words." And that prayer unlocked something. From that night onward, Samuel discovered that whenever he prayed before meeting, people really prayed. It was as though he could read them, their expressions, their tone. Even their silence revealed things to him that others completely missed. Was it mind reading in the Hollywood sense? No. It wasn't about hearing exact sentences inside people's brains. It was about a divine knowing, an inner clarity that came from God. And here's the first big lesson. Reading people's minds through prayer is not about control. It's about discernment. It's about seeing beyond the surface. And anyone who seeks God sincerely can walk in this gift. But let me pause here, because I know what you're probably thinking right now. Is this even biblical? Does the Bible really say we can know people's thoughts? Yes, over and over again. Let me take you to the Gospel of Luke. It says, "But when Jesus perceived their thoughts, he answered and said to them, 'Why are you reasoning in your hearts?'" Luke 5:22. Think about that. Jesus didn't just wait for people to speak. He perceived their thoughts. He read their inner reasoning. Another time in Matthew 9:4, it says, "But Jesus, knowing their thoughts, said, 'Why do you think evil in your hearts?'" Jesus read their minds, not by magic, not by guesswork, but because he was deeply connected to God through prayer. And here's the truth no one told you. Prayer doesn't just change things around you. Prayer changes you. It sharpens your spirit until you can sense the unseen. This is where most people miss it. They think prayer is only about asking God for blessings, for open doors, for healing. Yes, those things are important. But the deeper dimension of prayer is spiritual sensitivity. When you pray consistently, when you spend hours not just talking but listening, your spirit becomes tuned like a radio to God's frequency. And once you're tuned in, you begin to pick up what other people are transmitting. Their fears, their hidden emotions, their secret struggles. No, it's not like hearing a loudspeaker in your head. It's more subtle. It might come as a thought, a picture, a sudden knowing. Sometimes you'll just feel what the other person is feeling. Other times, God will drop a specific word into your heart. That's how you read minds through prayer. And I know this may sound unusual, maybe even scary. But let me assure you, it's not witchcraft. It's not manipulation. It's not some psychic trick. It is the Spirit of God sharpening your inner eyes and ears. Now, let's go deeper. Samuel, the young man in our story, began practicing this. Every time before meeting a friend, he would take a few minutes to pray quietly. "Lord, show me what they really need. Not what they say, but what they need." And over time, his relationships changed. Friends would open up to him like never before. They trusted him because he spoke directly to the things they hadn't even confessed. Here's where it gets interesting. One day, Samuel met a classmate who always acted tough, always laughing, always making jokes. Nobody ever took him seriously. But that morning, as Samuel looked at him, he suddenly felt something heavy in his chest, a deep sadness like grief. He paused and said, "You're smiling, but inside, you're hurting. Did you lose someone?" The boy froze. His eyes widened. "How did you know?" he whispered. He had just lost his older brother, but he hadn't told a soul. That's the power of prayer. It pulls back the mask people wear. Now here's a big lesson for you. Prayer gives you access to truth, and truth gives you influence. You see, most people live behind walls. They say one thing, but mean another. They smile, but inside they're broken. They act confident, but inside they're afraid. And unless you can see past the wall, you'll never connect deeply. But when you pray, God lets you see past the wall. That's why prayerful people often seem wise beyond their years. They don't fall for lies easily. They can sense hidden motives. They know when someone is pretending. Have you ever met someone like that? Someone who just knows things? Chances are that's not just intuition. That's the result of prayer. But let me warn you, this gift is powerful, but it's also dangerous if misused. Because once you start discerning people's thoughts and feelings, you might be tempted to manipulate them, to control them, to use their secrets for your own advantage. That's not the purpose of this gift. The purpose is love. God reveals hearts to you not so you can judge them, but so you can help them. Never forget that. Now I'm going to show you the practical steps. Samuel discovered the same steps that you can use to develop this gift in your own life. I'll also share how he once avoided a dangerous situation because prayer revealed what someone was secretly planning against him. Trust me, you don't want to miss that. One afternoon, Samuel was on his way home from school when a group of older boys approached him. They weren't his friends. In fact, they were the kind of people he usually tried to avoid: loud, intimidating, always looking for trouble. The leader smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was the kind of smile that hides something. He put his hand on Samuel's shoulder and said, "Hey, come with us. We want to show you something." Now, to anyone else, that might have sounded innocent. But in that moment, something stirred in Samuel's heart. It wasn't fear exactly. It was a knowing. He felt a sudden pressure, like an alarm ringing inside his spirit. And then, a clear thought: they're planning to hurt you. Samuel froze. He had no reason to think that. They hadn't threatened him. But the feeling was so strong that he knew it wasn't just his imagination. Quietly, under his breath, Samuel whispered a short prayer. "Lord, reveal the truth." Instantly, he remembered a verse. "When the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all truth." John 16:13. And just like that, the mask fell off. Samuel realized their friendly invitation was a trap. So instead of going with them, he smiled and said, "Sorry, I can't. I have somewhere to be." He turned and walked away, even though they tried to insist. Later, he discovered that those boys had been planning to rob him. That was the day Samuel learned this powerful lesson. Prayer doesn't just reveal people's emotions, it can reveal their intentions. And this is where it gets practical for you. If you want to develop the ability to discern people's minds through prayer, you need to understand the 3 layers of spiritual perception. The first layer is discernment of emotion. This is when, through prayer, you suddenly sense how someone feels. They may be smiling, but you feel sadness. They may be talking confidently, but you sense fear. This is the most common and often the first level people experience. The second layer is discernment of thoughts. This is deeper. It's when God lets you know what someone is reasoning within themselves. It might come as a phrase that drops into your spirit, or a sudden awareness of their unspoken concerns. The third and deepest layer is discernment of intention. This is when you perceive what someone is planning before they even act, just like Samuel did with those boys. It's not paranoia. It's a spiritual download. God lets you see what's ahead so you can act wisely. And here's the truth. These layers are not reserved for special people. They're available to anyone who prays sincerely and consistently. But here's the secret nobody told you. This kind of perception doesn't come from long prayers alone. It comes from the kind of prayers you pray. Let me explain. Most people pray for blessings. Lord, give me money. Lord, give me success. Lord, protect me. Those prayers are not wrong, but they don't sharpen your spirit. If you want to perceive people's thoughts, you must pray prayers of alignment. Lord, align my mind with your mind. Lord, open my inner ears. Lord, give me eyes that see and ears that hear. These are the prayers that tune your spirit. Now, let me tell you another part of Samuel's story. After that incident with the boys, word began to spread about him. People whispered, "He always seems to know things." Some were curious. Others were afraid. But one day, a girl in his class came to him in tears. She said, "Samuel, I don't know why, but I feel like you can understand me. Please, pray for me." As she spoke, Samuel bowed his head silently, praying in his heart. "Lord, Show me what she's really going through." Immediately, he felt a heavy burden of shame, not his own, but hers. And he saw in his mind a picture of her standing alone in her room, crying. He opened his eyes and said, "You feel like you can't tell anyone about your pain. You've been crying alone, haven't you?" The girl gasped. "How did you know?" she whispered. Tears streamed down her face. That conversation became the turning point in her life. Here's the lesson. When you pray, you don't just read people's minds, you read their hearts. And when you speak directly to someone's heart, walls come crashing down. So how do you practice this in your own life? Here are 3 practical steps you can start with today. Quiet the noise. You cannot hear people's unspoken thoughts if your own mind is always loud. Before meeting someone, spend a few minutes in silence. Breathe. Center yourself. Whisper a short prayer. "Lord, let me see beyond the surface." Listen more than you talk. Most people listen to reply. But if you want to read minds through prayer, listen to discern. Pay attention not just to words, but to pauses, to silence, to the weight behind their words. Trust the impressions. Often, God will give you a thought, a picture, or a feeling about someone. Don't dismiss it as random. Test it gently. You don't have to blurt it out. You can simply ask, "Are you feeling anxious?" Or, "Has something been troubling you?" You'll be surprised how accurate those impressions are. The more you practice, the sharper it gets. But let me warn you again, never use this to expose people for the sake of it. That will only harm them and you. Use it to love, to heal, to guide. Because here's what many people don't realize. The ability to read minds through prayer is not just a blessing, it is also a responsibility. Why? Because once you know the truth about people, you can no longer pretend. You can no longer say, "I didn't know." You'll feel their pain, you'll sense their intentions, and you'll be accountable for how you respond. This is why God doesn't reveal everything to everyone. He only reveals secrets to those who are ready to handle them with humility. So if you truly want this gift, ask yourself, am I ready to carry people's secrets without judgment? Am I ready to love people even when I know their darkest thoughts? That's the real test. Let me take you deeper with a story from Scripture. In John chapter 4, Jesus met a Samaritan woman at the well. She was an ordinary woman with a broken past. But as they spoke, Jesus revealed her hidden life. "You have had 5 husbands, and the one you now have is not your husband." The woman was shocked. She said, "Sir, I perceive you are a prophet. Do you see it?" Jesus read her life like an open book, not to embarrass her, not to condemn her, but to heal her. That's the heart of this gift. When prayer reveals people's minds to you, it's not so you can boast, but so you can bless. We saw how prayer gave Samuel the ability to sense not just emotions, but even people's hidden intentions. But what happens when what you perceive is too heavy to say out loud? One evening, Samuel was sitting with his closest friend, David. They had grown up together, shared secrets, shared meals, even shared their dreams of the future. But that night, something felt different. David was talking and laughing, joking like always, but Samuel felt a weight. As he listened, he prayed silently in his heart, "Lord, show me the truth." And suddenly, like a flash, Samuel knew David was hiding something. Not just a small thing, a dangerous thing. He saw in his spirit a picture, David surrounded by a group of older boys, nodding along as they whispered plans. Plans that Samuel knew would lead to trouble, possibly even jail. Samuel froze. Should he say it? Should he warn David? Or would David push him away, accuse him of being judgmental, and walk out of his life forever? That night, Samuel discovered a truth no one ever told him. Reading people's minds through prayer is not just about perception. It's about wisdom. Because perception without wisdom can destroy. This is the balance you must learn if you want to walk in this gift. It's not enough to know what people are thinking or planning. You must also know when to speak and when to stay silent. The Bible says in Proverbs 4:11, "A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in settings of silver." Notice that it's not just about the word, but the timing. A word spoken too soon or too harshly can do more harm than good. So Samuel didn't rush. He prayed again, "Lord, give me wisdom." And instead of accusing David, he asked a question. "David, are you sure the people you've been spending time with are good for you?" David laughed it off. "Why? You think I don't know what I'm doing?" But Samuel didn't push. He simply said, "I care about you. Just be careful." Days later, David came back to him, shaken. The very boys Samuel had seen in prayer had been arrested for theft, and David, he had narrowly escaped being with them that night. He looked at Samuel and whispered, "You knew, didn't you?" Samuel nodded. That day, their friendship deepened, because David realized Samuel wasn't trying to control him. He was protecting him. And here's the big lesson. When prayer reveals someone's thoughts, you don't always have to announce it. Sometimes the quiet seed you plant is enough. So how do you develop this wisdom? There are 3 keys you must understand. Not everything God shows you is for sharing. Sometimes He reveals things just so you can pray for the person privately. Don't be quick to speak. Be quick to listen. Ask questions instead of making statements. When you sense something about someone, frame it gently. Instead of, "I know what you're hiding," try, "Are you okay? Is something troubling you?" Questions open doors, accusations close them. Check your motive before speaking. Ask yourself, am I speaking to help or to prove I'm right? If your motive isn't love, stay silent. Because here's the danger. If you misuse this gift, it can turn from discernment into manipulation. And once that happens, it no longer serves God's purpose. It serves your ego. Let's pause for a moment and look at how this works in Scripture. In Acts chapter 5, there was a couple named Ananias and Sapphira. They pretended to give all the money from a land sale, but secretly kept part of it back. Nobody else knew. But when they stood before Peter, he said, "Why has Satan filled your heart to lie to the Holy Spirit?" Peter read their intentions through the Spirit. But notice he didn't expose them to embarrass them. He exposed them because their actions were a danger to the early church. His motive wasn't pride, but protection. That's the balance you must keep. Now let's return to Samuel. After the incident with David, word spread even further. People started coming to him for advice, for prayer, even for guidance. And though Samuel was young, he found himself in situations far bigger than his age. One day, a teacher asked him to pray for her. Samuel was nervous. This was an authority figure. But as he prayed, he suddenly felt her deep anxiety, hidden beneath her calm appearance. And then a thought came to him. She feels like she's failing, not just at work, but in life. Samuel hesitated. Should he say it? Wouldn't it sound disrespectful? But instead of saying it outright, he prayed softly, "Lord, remind her that she is seen, that her efforts are not wasted, that you know her sacrifices." The teacher broke down in tears. Afterwards, she said, "I've never told anyone this, but I've been struggling to feel like a failure." How did you know? That's the beauty of this gift when used wisely. You don't always have to spell out what you see. Sometimes, just praying the right words at the right moment reveals to the person that God truly knows them. So here's what you must understand. Reading minds through prayer is not about being loud. It's about being accurate. One gentle word, one quiet prayer can speak louder than 100 bold declarations. Now let me give you a practical exercise you can try this week. Before meeting someone, a friend, a coworker, even a stranger, take 2 minutes to pray silently. Ask, "Lord, what does this person need right now? What are they carrying that I cannot see?" Then pay attention. Maybe you'll feel a sudden sadness. Maybe a phrase will pop into your mind. Maybe you'll just know they're under pressure. Don't dismiss it. Then, gently, either ask a question or say a kind word. You'll be surprised how often they'll say, "How did you know?" That's how the gift grows. But remember, with greater clarity comes greater risk. Because not everyone wants to be known. Some people hide their thoughts for a reason. And when you perceive what they're hiding, they may resist you. That's what happened next in Samuel's journey. He once saw something in someone's heart that he was never meant to share. And the fallout nearly cost him everything. And it's in that moment that he learned the most powerful truth of all. Reading people's minds through prayer is not about exposing secrets. It's about carrying burdens. Stay with me, because the journey is about to get even deeper. There comes a moment in every journey where the gift you asked for feels less like a blessing and more like a weight. For Samuel, that moment came late one night. He was sitting alone, praying, when he suddenly felt a crushing heaviness in his chest. Not fear, not sadness, something deeper. It was as though someone nearby was silently screaming inside, and their cries had landed on him. Confused, Samuel whispered, "Lord, what is this? Who is it?" And then he knew. It was his neighbor, a young man who always looked cheerful, always laughed loudly, always seemed fine. But in prayer, Samuel saw the truth. The young man was on the edge of giving up on life. Samuel's hands trembled. Should he go and confront him? Should he knock on his door and declare what he had seen? Or would that only scare him, push him further away? That was when Samuel learned the final, hardest lesson. Sometimes when prayer lets you read people's minds, it is not so you can speak to them. It is so you can speak to God for them. Because here's the secret no one told you. Reading people's minds through prayer is not about exposing their secrets. It is about carrying their burdens. Samuel didn't run to his neighbor that night. Instead, he fell to his knees and prayed with tears, pleading, "Lord, save him. Lord, give him hope. Don't let him give up." The next morning, he saw the young man again. This time, Samuel didn't say what he had seen. He just smiled, put a hand on his shoulder, and said, "I'm glad you're here." The young man froze. His eyes welled up. And all he whispered was, "Thank you. You don't know how much I needed to hear that." That was enough. Samuel didn't need to announce that he had read his thoughts. His prayer had already done the work. And that brings us full circle. So let's summarize everything we've uncovered in this journey. You wanted to know how to read people's minds through prayer, the secret no one told you. And now, step by step, we've seen it. First, you learned that prayer sharpens your spirit. It doesn't just change your circumstances, it changes you. It tunes you to God's frequency, so you begin to sense what others are carrying. Second, you learned the 3 layers of discernment. The discernment of emotion, sensing how people feel beyond their words. The discernment of thought, perceiving their silent reasoning. And the discernment of intention, seeing what they plan before they act. Third, you learned that this gift is not just about perception, but about wisdom. Not everything God shows you is for sharing. Sometimes the wisest thing you can do is stay silent. Plant a seed with a gentle question, or pray quietly in the background. Fourth, you discovered that the purpose of this gift is love. Jesus himself read people's thoughts, not to condemn, but to heal. The Samaritan woman at the well, the Pharisees plotting in their hearts, Ananias and Sapphira hiding their deception. In every case, God's purpose was to reveal truth in order to save, not to destroy. And finally, the deepest secret. Reading minds through prayer is not about showing off or exposing people. It is about carrying their burdens before God. It is about intercession, about being the one who prays when no one else knows. That is the heart of it all. So what do you do now? How do you begin? Here are the steps you can start practicing today. Step 1. Pray prayers of alignment, not just requests. Instead of only asking for blessings, pray, "Lord, align my heart with yours. Tune my ears to hear. Sharpen my spirit to discern." Step 2. Practice silence before interactions. Take a minute before meeting someone to breathe, to pray silently, "Lord, what do they need right now?" Train your spirit to listen before you speak. Step 3. Trust the impressions you receive. When a sudden thought, picture, or feeling comes, don't dismiss it. Test it gently through a question or a kind word. Often you'll find it's exactly what the person needed to hear. Step 4. Use the gift in love. Never use discernment to manipulate or embarrass. Use it to heal, to encourage, to intercede. Remember, God reveals secrets only to those who can carry them with humility. Step 5. Grow through practice. Like any gift, this sharpens with time. The more you pray, the more sensitive you'll become. The more you practice, the clearer the impressions will be. And step 6. Always return the burden to God. Don't carry people's thoughts like weights on your shoulders. Bring them to prayer. Pray for them. Release them to God, because this gift was never meant to crush you. It was meant to partner you with Him. So now you know the secret no one told you. Yes, you can read people's minds through prayer, not by magic, not by manipulation, but by the Spirit of God sharpening your perception. You can sense their emotions. You can perceive their thoughts. You can discern their intentions. And above all, you can carry their hidden burdens before the throne of God. That is the true power of prayer. That is the true secret. And if you begin practicing it today, you'll find that doors will open, relationships will deepen, wisdom will grow, and people will look at you with wonder, asking, "How did you know?" And you'll smile because the answer is simple. You didn't know, but God did. So the next time you pray, don't just ask for blessings, ask for discernment. Ask to see as God sees, to hear as God hears, because that is how you read people's minds through prayer.